Hey everyone, I'm Mitchell and welcome back to the pod. Today I am so excited to have someone back who's been here a few times, but we never have gotten the chance to take a deep dive into his story. And so today we're finally going to do that. Jared Alexander, welcome back. How are you doing?
Hi, Mitchell. I'm good. I'm so happy to be back. This is finally, this has been a long time coming.
Yes. No, I feel like you come on like every 3 months and there's just so many other things to talk about. It just never happened. And it's like after we filmed that Wicked episode in November, I was like, it's time. We're making it happen. And I'm so glad that we're here. So we have so much to talk about. We're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about Bravo. There's so many things, and we're going to unpack it all. So everyone get seated, and it's going to be a moment. But before we jump into that, as we've been doing recently, we need to share our hyperfixations. For those who are new here, maybe don't know what a hyperfixation is. There's so many things that happen every single day, and I'm obsessed with all of them. And oftentimes there's not an opportunity to share it. So that's how I like to set the tone each week. So hyperfixations, I can go first. There was so many things to choose from. I was like debating, like, do I want to talk about like current influencer drama or something else? But the influencer drama was like, I was kind of mapping it out and I was like, this is becoming like a thesis statement. Like I need to be a little bit. So this week, Dylan Efron, and we'll talk about the Traitors later, but Dylan Efron, he cleared the air on his I don't shower allegations by posting this Instagram story that honestly, I saw that it changed my life. It changed my life.
The world stopped.
The world stopped. The world stopped. I think some stars exploded. Like it was, it was a moment. That Speedo, I think he needs to launch his own swimwear line because I fear the gays would sell it out in like 0.2 seconds because.
Oh my gosh. What about Amanda Batula? She just launched her swimwear line. Now we got to worry about Dylan? I'm kidding.
maybe she could do a collab. But
yes.
I fear that could cause drama with Kyle because then maybe he's going to think that she's cheating on him with Dylan.
A misguided collab with with that.
Wait,
I don't know. I feel like Kyle may like that brand, that like cross-pollination, and also Kyle's a Traitors alum already. He was in season 1 of Traitors, so I feel like that could work.
Okay. Well, maybe we need to send this to Amanda. Send this clip to her, and we can get those those gears grinding because I love her line. I've seen some photos of her of the launch, and it looks great. Unfortunately, I don't think they have any men's items, but
I don't think so. Not yet. They should. They should use Wes and Jesse as models. But I am so with you on that video. I feel like it was like a perfect way to like talk about that moment. I will say, there was no soap in the video. So like, I do feel like, and I'm not originating that. Someone else actually did tweet that. They were like, but also like, where's the soap? But still, it doesn't matter. It was an outdoor shower. Like, I feel like it was like a perfect way to like wink at that interview he did a couple weeks ago.
I'll trust. Hopefully he is showering and using soap. However, I do feel like he is in like a back of a truck a lot, like on his stories. Like, does he live in a truck? Does he have an apartment? But I also get his Tempo ads all the time. Like for the meal service company, I always get like his targeted, like the sponsored posts, like not even like organically, but like Tempo is boosting his post. And he is in a house. So he must also have a formal residence that he is living in. So I would hope in that residence he has a shower with soap that he's using. But maybe this is an opportunity for him to launch like a shower care brand, like in Target or something. I think that could be a moment, maybe. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. No, I think so too. There's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. Jared, what is your hyperfixation?
I'm like, can there be anything else? It's mayhem today for me, but it's like it came out yesterday. I was up all night Thursday. I had to be up anyway because, again, it was like Traitors finale, Southern Hospitality finale, Southern Hospitality reunion, Traitors reunion. And I went to a live show before then, so like it just was a long night. And I was up at midnight, so I listened to the whole thing. And I'm like such an OG little monster. So yeah, that's just, I had the greatest workout of my life this morning to it. Like I was like on cloud 9. Like I literally felt like, I was like, what? This is crazy. I was like, this must be what it feels like to go into space. Like I literally was like, this is perfect.
What are your favorite songs?
Oh my gosh. I would say like off the bat, I really love Perfect Celebrity. Like I think it's one of the best songs she's ever written. Like it feels like she's been like chasing that for a while. Vanish Into You. How Bad Do You Want Me? And I was like really into Love Drug today. But
Okay.
it's going to take like way more spins. It's going to take a lot more of like me literally sinking my teeth into it. But yeah, I feel like I'm back. I feel like I'm like, my powers are back.
Yeah. It like listening to Mayhem while working out just instantly makes you hotter. Like you become unstoppable.
I'm screaming. It's literally like it's literally like a makeover sequence in like an early 2000s movie. Like I'm like, oh my God, like
Yes.
I made
yes,
it.
It transforms you. It transforms you. I'm so excited.
Yes.
Tomorrow morning I'm doing a spin class that's Mayhem themed, and
Fun.
I fear some of those songs are going to hit on a bike.
Oh,
like
the bikes will be broken. Like those bikes are going to be the screws will be coming out. There will be no bikes left by the end of it. There's just going to be just smoke and pedals. That's it.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. And my favorite songs, I was just listening before this. Let me tell you, because I like my strategy when a new album comes out is I like go through and like listen to it all and like my favorites. Mm-hmm. The one that I'm like really obsessed with this morning is Shadow of a Man.
Yes.
That one
I'm
is so good.
pissed I didn't say that one. Because Shadow of a Man is so good. It's so good.
Maybe there's just no skips. So
I think I know we say that all the time, and I feel like that term is thrown around a lot. And I also feel like, especially that like middle chunk that's like really funky, like I feel like it's taken a lot of spins for people because like it's not what we were expecting. Even though she had said in a lot of interviews, she was like, if you think you know what's happening the first 4 tracks, you don't. But I think like now that I'm like really used to it, like it does feel like one of her leanest bodies of work. Even though it's 14 tracks, like it feels like everything is there for a reason. It doesn't feel like there's even like the slower back half, which like took me a second. Like today was like a Saturday morning. I was making my coffee before the gym. I was listening to it. I was like crying over Blade of Grass. I was like, wait, I was like, I think it all kind of fits. So I don't know. Yeah. I'm kind of with you on that, but Shadow of a Man for sure. Like I need to go out and dance to that expeditiously.
Well, Jared, everyone knows or at this point is familiar with like the things you're interested in and like what types of things in culture that you like. I mean, you were here to unpack the Barbie movie. We unpacked Cowboy Carter when it came out and started to talk about Wicked and then spent 2 hours talking about the Wicked movie. So people know that you are for the girls and you love culture and you are passionate about that both personally and like the stuff that you do professionally, which we'll talk about some of your recent professional slays a little bit later. But Jared, I want to turn the tables a little bit. You interview people for your job, but I'm going to spend a little time here now interviewing you. So I want to start with a simple question. Tell the people, who is Jared Alexander?
Yes. I mean, I feel like you did already such a good job with those 10 polls that you brilliantly laid out in all the episodes that we've done here. But yeah, I'm like a very pop culture interested writer and actor. It's like kind of like the large and the big and the small of it all. I mostly was only acting or like primarily acting until like my mid-20s, until the pandemic hit. And then I've been professionally writing now for 5 years. I'm a pop culture writer, primarily a TV and film writer, although I will cover music sometimes and I'll write anywhere I can. But I was a staff TV and film writer for a couple years. So that's kind of where like my strength is. That is like a summary of it. A small summary.
Okay. Well, let's go way back. Like, what is the Jared lore? Like, where did you grow up and what was life like?
I'm from Trumbull, Connecticut, which is a smallish town there. I mean, it's actually pretty big, but it's a town in Connecticut. And yeah, I feel like I was a theater kid, like from the beginning, basically. So like from as young as I can remember, I was always like singing, dancing, not shutting up. I'm like very much a textbook only child. And I grew up with like a really huge extended family. So I just was like constantly surrounded by people who would entertain me or that I would entertain, singing, dancing, making up stories, all those things. Tried every sport under the book, literally every single sport, I think, until finally like in middle school, I was like really doing theater and drama club stuff. And then I was very much a kid who like, I went to a performing arts high school. I very much was like, I want to do musical theater. Like that is what I want to do. It is like my biggest passion and still is in a lot of ways, but I now write way more too. But yeah, I think like little Jared was like, knew he wanted to perform, but didn't really know exactly in what capacity. And I've always had this like big thirst for knowledge for pop culture in general. And like that, I feel like, I mean, I grew up with like, of course, like e-news and like all those things, but I feel like especially now the way culture is and with social media, like you didn't really have a chance to like where I like cut my teeth as like a pop culture person and where I was absorbing information was like through my family or like the cafeteria or recess. You know what I mean? Like what I was talking about, especially as an only child, what I was talking about in social situations that I was thrown into. And like, I feel like I would already was like super, I remember I would be home, let's say on like a Tuesday night, I'm trying to think of like a popular show. If like Glee was on, I would be like, I can't wait to talk about this tomorrow in science class. And like, I like, could like the way I would talk about it would almost be like interviewing people about like their opinions on it, like what they think is going to happen, like all those things, just because it's just stuff I'm interested in, down to music and movies and TV and stuff. So I feel like that was always something that was also a big part of me, while also I was like a hardcore theater kid, like listening to Rent nonstop, doing musical, like doing 3 or 4 shows a year, like that type of thing.
Damn. So you were like a professional yapper. Like you were yapping, you were facilitating the yap. You were gathering people up and you were creating that moment for everyone. Like,
yes, I would not shut up. I definitely was in the 2nd grade. I'll never forget this. No, this was in the 1st grade. I remember it was like one of those like parent teacher meetings, but like I was there because I was like 6. And I remember my teacher telling my mom, she was like, well, you know, Jared, he does have the gift of the gab. And I remember hearing that. Like, you know, like you can sometimes like remember, at least I can, like in your childhood, like core moments where like you learn something or like there's like a breakthrough. And I was like, oh, I never heard that before. And I remember that just like kind of sticking with me. And like I'd be like telling my mom that and she was like, yes, Jared, but also like you need to like not talk in class as much. Like I just like would not stop talking. And I'm like a textbook Gemini and I'm an only child. So like when I was in school, I was yapping. Like I was never the kid. I never faked sick or wanted to stay home. Like I just like wasn't, not because like, I mean, I like school. I do like learning and like I have like some nerdy tendencies in that sense, but I really just like love the social interaction. Like I did not want to miss a second of school. Like you're behind socially. Like you don't know what's going on. You don't know the gossip. You don't know everything. So I feel like it's cool now zooming out, like something that I think sometimes would like get me not necessarily in trouble, but would like kind of hold me back academically or like, you know, would be like kind of like a dig or a jab or like sometimes being embarrassed about how much I wanted to talk about things that now that's my career. Like I literally write about culture. And I also still get to do theater. So I feel like it's cool that like, again, those things that are passions of mine and things that feel like such strong essences of me are literally tied to my career now.
You were gabbing your way to the top, quite literally. You also mentioned you were super into theater growing up. Do you remember like how you first were exposed to the arts? Like, was there a first show you saw, or like, were you just walking around the house singing and your parents were like, we need to get Jared into lessons right now?
I would say it's a bit of both. Again, I'm like a 90s kid who's like an only child. So like as much as like I remember first shows I saw, I really credit like Disney VHSs. Like I was constantly watching movies and TV, like because I was always sat in front of a TV, like watch your movies and your stuff. And like I was kind of left to my own devices. So like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Hercules, like every Disney, especially that like 90s run, or like 89 to like 2000, like I was watching like every day, and those are musical theater texts really. And I feel like that is what really informed me in terms of like loving that. Then as I got older, I was able to kind of see either like local shows that toured, or I started to perform like a little bit. Like I did like group dance classes or like group like singing classes and stuff. And there was like a local theater, like a community theater that would do classes that my mom took me to. But it wasn't as, I don't think I even knew either. Cause like, you know, growing up, I was like, no, like I want to play soccer and basketball. And that's all my friends did. And I was decent. At soccer. Everything else was, but again, I love the social aspect. Sorry, for the people just listening, everything else was so is the sign that I made, and that's generous. But yeah, then around like middle school, you know, there actually was like a drama club, and I remember like auditioning, and I got like the lead for the show, and that's when I was like, oh wait, I kind of want to do this, like as a hobby or like as like a passion. And that is when I feel like middle school is always that time where like I remember there were like eighth graders who were like giving me an education. Like they were like, oh, like you don't know what Rent is, or like Spring Awakening was really big. Like that's when like Spring Awakening was on Broadway in like '06.
Okay.
And I was like, what is that? I was like 11, and I was like, oh my god. So I feel like those were kind of like the moments, and then I wound up going to a performing arts magnet high school where like I was a musical theater major there.
Okay. I want to go backwards because you're speed running. Okay.
Please,
first,
sorry.
You said you did group dance classes. How old were you when you did that, and were there any other guys in those?
This was like
those
elementary
classes?
school, and I honestly couldn't tell you. I think maybe like one or two, but it was like there was a community theater called Playhouse on the Green at the time. And they would do like, it was like a voice lesson, a dance lesson. And I would go and there'd be like a bunch of other people and we would like learn songs. We were young. We were like, again, in elementary school.
This is like Hollywood arts. You're like Victoria's over here.
But this would be like a little bit in the summers. Like my main extracurriculars were sports heavy, which again, I don't blame my mom for. It's just like what you did when you had a son, and I also, all my friends did it. And it's like kind of what I expressed that I wanted to do too at the time. So that those classes were few and far between. It wasn't really until middle school where I was like, I want to do this. And also this was, for timing wise, this was like, I went to high school as Glee was airing. So like, I feel like there wasn't the like whole like Glee effect thing was happening as I was already doing it. And it wasn't like I wonder if like the musical theater frenzy that show really, not just that show, but like that era of Broadway, like kind of ushered in. Like if I was in elementary school, like maybe I would have seen more of that, but that wasn't really the thing at the time.
So pretty much you were ahead of the curve. You were a trailblazer. Like Glee saw you and they said, we need to tap into that more.
Oh my gosh. a little more just like right on time. It was like as it was happening. But
you were in sync. You and Ryan Murphy. You were like, we know what the people need. Yeah.
No, it was the first season of Glee was my freshman year of high school. So that was kind of fun that I was like, but I think they were sophomores in the first season. So I still felt young. You know what I mean? I still felt like a baby. Like I was like, oh, they're ahead of me. But still,
I mean, it was like this cultural moment was happening kind of in parallel to like your experience, which was like very similar to what everyone else was seeing and becoming aware of. Before I jump into that, you mentioned too that you had watched a lot of like Disney VHSs growing up. Is there like a secret version of Jared that's also a Disney gay, or did that part of you die?
Okay, here's the thing. I will always love Disney, and I've also been fortunate enough in my professional career, especially when I was staffed at the last website I worked for, I would do a lot of parks coverage, which was so fun because I did get to go as a kid, but I feel like there are two types of Disney gays. I'm like a home media Disney gay. You know what I mean? Like I was like constantly embedded with like, I was a Disney Channel kid and I was obsessed with the movies. I was never like a parks obsessed person. That's not a dig or anything. I just feel like there are like Disney gays.
It's actually kind of surprising to me because I feel like at least for me, like I'm going to call myself like a Disney gay, like, but I enjoy the Disney parks in the context of like, it's a giant show and you're like in the show. And that's why I love it, and I'm so interested in like, you know, these videos about like the like abandoned stuff and like all these like random things. Like I love to like just watch because it's literally like a giant stage production. So it's interesting that like you're kind of like the opposite, and it's like you're more so into like all the media that they pump out.
Yeah, it's so weird, and I totally get that. And I just never was a kid. Like I wasn't watching YouTube videos of like Fantasmic. Like I just wasn't. Although like I have friends who did, and my ex actually was obsessed with Disney parks and is from Florida. So like that was kind of cool. Like in my early 20s.
Now we know why Jared really hates it.
No, but it's actually a good thing though. Cause like through him, I got to like kind of experience that with kind of fresh eyes. Like we would go a bunch. And he really loves it. So I was able to like learn a lot about that stuff that just kind of hadn't interested me until then. And then again, I was super fortunate. Like I went to Disney like 3 times on press trips. So I really enjoy it now. So yeah, maybe like a Disney gay light. Like I think there's like no way to take it out of who I am, but it's the home media.
Yeah, I think there's 2 different buckets here. I think there's Disney gay and then there's Disney adult.
Yes.
Okay.
You know what? That's true. That's true.
I think Disney gay, I think it's like, I think people like will belabor that a little bit too much and make it too extreme. But I feel like if you enjoy going to it as like in your
Right.
adult years, and like you think it's like fun and kind of campy, and like you enjoy that. I think it's time that we reclaim Disney gay. I think Disney adult, support them in their matching t-shirts, and I really think that's great. But it's not for me, and I enjoy it in like that lighter way.
Well, I also think, not to zoom out, and I'm sure we'll stay on track, but like I do think just like culturally in general, zooming out, I am way more interested in people earnestly loving things than being over everything. And I feel like we're like coming off the heels of like a wave where like you're kind of like everything's corny or like everything's lame and like you're over everything, which I think is fun in like a sarcastic, dry way. But I think then like then you can't enjoy anything. So I think like if you like unabashedly love Disney, then you do. Like it is what it is. You're passionate about it. You love it. You know?
If people love Disney and they love going every single year, like 3 times a year, and they want to do that, that's great. It's not what I'm going to do, but I'm happy that like it's bringing you joy. Like I think everyone overall, everyone just needs to let everyone like celebrate and have fun and enjoy things, because I feel like everything else is so like scary and not fun and like terrifying for what like the future holds. So it's like, if there is those things that you like to do with your friends or to watch or to giggle about, like, I think that's great. I think it's like part of why I like to keep doing this podcast, because it's a space to like have that shared experience when like oftentimes like people find something really niche that they like and like have no one to talk about it with.
Yeah, and you can share that experience. Like I'm not going to knock someone who's obsessed with Disney or the parks when like my favorite thing in the whole world is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like that is like, I will like geek out about it. And like it was sometime around high school when I really watched it for the first time. And it's like, it's my favorite thing in the whole world. So like, I can't sit here and be like, wow, you're corny for loving something so much when like,
no,
I literally am obsessed with this.
And I'm not trying to knock the Disney adults. I support them in their lifestyle. I think it's great. Would I be lying if I said I didn't like giggle at like the TikToks that like our people make about Disney adults? That'd be a lie if I said I didn't. But I think it's great. And if I had my choice, I would go to Disney more frequently. I love the experience of being and like going on all the rides and everything. I think it's so great. But maybe it's jealousy. That's where it's rooted from. But I've literally never seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I feel like there's like a part of like the gay community that like loves that show, and I feel like I need to get on it. I think that's like my next to do.
Yeah, I mean, it is a perfect time for it because there are these like talks and like there's a reboot in the works basically that Sarah's involved in, which is like a very big deal just for like so many reasons. But I feel like that it's one of those shows that I feel like, because we're like close-ish in age, like I do feel like being born in 95, I'm like in between, like culturally, like in between a lot of different things. So like Buffy really, it's not something I grew up with. Like there are like gays I know who like grew up with Buffy. They watched Buffy like it was like their thing. I was really young. I was 2 when it premiered. So like I got to it later. But I remember like it would be on in reruns, and like I always would be like, what is that? And it's a very queer coded show. It's one of the best TV shows in the whole world. Like it just is, that's ever been made. And it's like a show that's just about like high school as hell. And like, it literally takes that metaphor and like brings it to life. That's just like the log line. But it's so good. And it's a show that's aged so well. And it's a show that I think, has been there for me in different times of my life. And like every time I go back to it, I like grow with it. But all that to say, it's like, it's awesome. And like, I think gay people, queer people in general really gravitate towards it. There's like just amazing groundbreaking queer representation in the show as it progresses, but also just like what it means as a metaphor to be an outsider. It's about found family. It's about standing up to your demons. It's about growing up. It's about falling in love. It's about loss. Like, it's just about like everything. And it's just this like fantasy show that is like, it's crazy. It's like the most grounded thing you'll ever watch at the same time. When like you're just as stressed when Buffy can't make it, when she's running late to her prom, as you are when she's like fighting a demon from a hell dimension. Like it's like everything's just as stressful. And it's like my favorite thing in the whole world. And it really, I think, has colored me as an artist too. Like it's like the type of art I want to make. It's the type of art I'm interested in. Is like a mix of everything. Mm-hmm. Yes, and stick with it. I will say, and then I'll shut up about it because this is like my golden pitch. But it was like a mid-season replacement show. So the first season's only like 10 or 12 episodes, and some people will tell you to skip it altogether. I say no. I say just watch it. It is not the best, but it's also so foundational, and you feel them like figuring out the show. And then season 2 on, about like halfway through season 2 on, it is like the best TV you'll ever watch. But the beginning is a little like, I think a lot of people get discouraged because it's like so 90s. The graphics are so rough and like they don't really know who these characters are yet. But I think some of the most beautiful moments of the show are in that first run.
Okay. We were talking about high school, and you said that you started high school right when Glee was starting. And I know, at least for me, I was born in 99. So like I was a little bit younger when Glee was coming out.
Yeah.
And so like, it was having like transformational impact on like how I viewed like gay people, and like seeing something that I had never seen displayed to me before. And so it had a huge impact on me. I'm curious, when you're in high school, like when it starts coming out, are you already like starting to explore your identity, or do you feel that cultural shift as well in your own experience?
I definitely already was starting to explore that. I think so. For context, I went to a performing arts magnet, but the way it works in Connecticut, so a magnet school, it's like, it's not just like in one town, or it's like basically it was like an entire county can go to this performing arts high school, as opposed to like, because Connecticut is really populated, but so small. It's like, we don't have like county high schools. It's like each town, each city has their own high school or multiple high schools. And you just go there. It's like very like districted, but then a magnet school could be like kids from 10 different towns can apply and then go to the school. But also the way the performing arts magnets work in Connecticut, it was like half of my day. So I still went to my public high school for like my general education, for like my math, my science, English, all that. And then I would take a bus around 2:30 and go to RCA, which is what it was called. I would go there until like 4:45, and it would be like 2 hour-and-a-half long periods. So it was like, I wasn't taking gym in high school, and I wasn't taking like art or anything. Like all my like elective classes were my RCA classes. So I think that, of course, like being able to go outside of like the same town that I grew up in for 15 years at that point, to be able to meet other kids, other queer kids, even have queer faculty, just like it felt already, even though I didn't come out until my senior year, I was in a much safer environment for that. And also culturally, Glee was huge. I would say 2 things, and it's funny because I just was talking about her, but it was like going to high school and peak Lady Gaga and Glee. Born This Way came out my sophomore year, junior year. And that coupled with, again, just like the rise of Glee, and again, it wasn't a perfect show, but like watching that curtain playing kiss, and like just the way the representation at that time, like how big that was for high school kids and what it brought up was so huge. Like I say this, I don't know if I would credit this to Glee per se. I know for sure I will for Lady Gaga, is that like, I don't know what my coming out story would have been without that. And having that. And even though like when Born This Way came out, I was like convincing myself I wasn't gay, but like, I know deep down it was speaking to something. And like, I knew I was lying to myself about something.
When you were going through high school and this media was coming out and you were starting to kind of like feel like you could resonate with different elements of it, like was your feeling inside kind of like, oh, I'm different, I can't quite put my finger on what it is, and like through conversations with people, like did that kind of help, or like was there other guys that were at your school that you were both going through this process together and you were able to like explore that? Like how did you kind of come to settle on what exactly it was that made you different?
I think it's a mix of a lot of things, especially just like with my own background and being, especially like, so the town I'm in is like a pretty predominantly white town that I grew up in. So already being a Black kid in that environment, I already felt a sort of outsider type of vibe. And that's what was so nice about RCA too, the Performing Arts High School, is that I was like able to see way more students, like literally like other musical theater kids who like looked like me. And again, it wasn't like the most perfect place in the world, but it absolutely was like more diverse, concentrated diversity than my elementary to middle to high school experience. So I think a lot of that media, I already resonated with just being a Black kid in that environment. But then even deeper, of course, there's the intersectionality, and there was like my sexuality too. And I had other people like it was like, again, not to geek out, but like when like Lady Gaga hit the scene, it was like a meteor. Like it was just like, whoa. And that was, I was in the 8th grade when Just Dance and Poker Face came out. So like I still relatively young. Like it wasn't like.
Those are formative years though. I can only imagine. Like those songs come out and those music videos come out. And it's just like holy smokes, like what is going on here? And it can have profound impact as it clearly did. Do you remember the first time you heard those songs?
I vividly remember being in Spanish in the 8th grade, and I can't remember her name. Some girl like walked into our Spanish class and was like, "Oh my God, this new song, Just Dance, like with Akon, it's so good." And I remember she was like, and that was like a very much an era. It was like the iPod era, and we were allowed to use our iPods. Again, it's so interesting technology-wise, like what we could or couldn't do, because like we had cell phones, but they weren't smartphones, so we weren't allowed to use them, but like we weren't as distracted by them as we are now. But we had iPods, so like we were allowed to use our iPods in the hallway in between class, and that was it. And she had like come in and she was like, "Oh my God, like Just Dance, this like Kobe Odanis Akon and this new singer Lady Gaga," which is just so funny to think about. And I remember liking it, and I like really, but then I saw the Poker Face video, and I was so obsessed with it. And then it was really that paparazzi performance, like so many of us, where I was like, oh my God. Like I remember like sitting there in my living room and watching it with my mom. And I can even say then, like not having the words for it or feeling it, but like feeling like it spoke to the queerness in me, just like leaning in and being like, oh my God, this is unafraid to reference or not reference. It was like everything. And I think that those moments are like so impactful and imperative. And like, and I was able to find other people. Again, she was like a meteor when she came. So like straight guys being like, rah, rah, you know what I mean? It just was like a thing. And like, it was even like, she's so weird. Oh my God, she's so crazy. But she was still on everybody's lips. And especially at my performing arts high school and even at my public high school, we were talking and consuming about her. And she was like, I had like other like little monster friends. And then I would say around Born This Way, because also another big thing, I was a big Tumblr kid. So like I went into high school, like very peak Tumblr. And that was like such a place for me where I was like discovering my queer identity.
Yeah. What was your Tumblr like?
Oh my God. It was so, it was very just like hipster coded, and like I was listening to like, yes, a lot of pop music, but a lot of like Mayday Parade and a lot of Fall Out Boy and a lot of like My Chemical Romance, like stuff like that. Again, I grew up in like a really white town, and that was just a lot of Paramore, just like a lot of like 500 Days of Summer screen grabs and a lot of Del Rey. Like, it was just like stuff like that. But like Born This Way, like I had like little monster friends online that like I would like go on Tumblr, and we would like Edge of Glory leaked, and I was crying. I was like literally like trying to like take it down, and I was like begging people not to listen to it. Like I was like,
you were containing the leaks early on. Yes, you were.
Yes,
you were
I was like, she
for...
worked so hard for this, and it was like, oh my God, she's in her Springsteen era. And you know what's so funny too? Sorry, I'm a gabber.
No, I love this.
A Gaga album, someone tweeted this too. They were like, what's amazing about a Gaga album is every time it drops, people wish it sounded like the last one. So people are like, oh, I want like a dark pop type of vibe. And if you actually listen to Chromatica, like a lot of it is that. Like it's a kind of bright, but it kind of is that. And I remember when Born This Way came out, people were kind of like, oh, like they didn't like the 80s metal hairband Bruce Springsteen type of vibe. They were like really wanting like a Fame Monster type of sound. Now when we talk about Born This Way, people are like, oh my God, it's her magnum opus. Like that is like the album. But like, I remember when it came out, there was like some tepid disappointment because it wasn't what people were expecting. But yeah, I was like a kid, and I was able to form my community there too online. Where again, I was being inundated with like queer people online, with like people coming out, and like the coming out video was really big. So like I was very lucky that like culturally I was able to kind of grab those things. And like Tumblr, when it was good, was like, I don't think we've had social media, and I'm sorry to like Pinterest lovers, like it is fun. It's not that. Like Tumblr was like a place where like we were able to really like fuse all these cultures together to like make something new. And that like the trends were so big. Like yes, it was what you wanted to wear, but it also was what you were listening to. It was what you were watching, and it was like who you wanted to be, and like, and your morals and what mattered. Like it was like peak millennial. And it's weird for me to talk about it because they were like 20 something. Like if you watch Girls, for example, like they were like and they were like 20 somethings, right? Like actually living in New
Wait,
York.
I've
and
never
like,
seen that show either.
oh my God. But it's like, but that,
I know
like,
what it is, but I've never
millennial,
seen it. Yeah.
right. But like that, like millennial thing, it's, again, I just feel like so caught in between two things. It's like, I never got to be like an adult and do those things, but I was like a high school kid who was I was so impressionable. So like all those things were who I wanted to be or what I aspired to be.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, when Tumblr was good, it was like so cool. It was so fun. And like, the internet isn't fun anymore, I don't think. I think we have a lot of like, it's just how we connect with each other, and like it is what it is. And sometimes it can feel like a chore, but I feel like when I would like get home from school, or like I would be in the library in high school, Amy and my friend Catherine, we'd like log onto our Tumblrs. It was like, it was like awesome. It just was so, there was like discovery. I feel like there's no discovery in the internet anymore, which is a bummer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going all over the place.
No, but even in the way you're describing like community and how you were able to like find folks on Tumblr, like I think especially like with like, you know, finding fellow monsters that maybe you didn't know in real life. I think there is like maybe a few years ago there was a level of that on Twitter, kind of.
Yes.
But I think even now like that's kind of faded away. And it's much more like self-contained to like maybe like those 2 or 3 people that you like already met like several years back. I mean, it's much harder to like find new people that have those same interests. Like, it's just like, it's very much so like one-off type of like, oh, this is funny, but there's less of like a community building, I think.
1000%. And especially when Twitter became way more like mixed media, like when Twitter first, I remember like making my Twitter again, like the 8th or 9th grade, and it was so text-based only. So like you had Tumblr that was like so mixed media again. Like it was like video, photo, like it was just like a whole mix of things. And then Tumblr or Twitter, especially when Tumblr kind of fell down, like Twitter was able to like carry that slack. And especially like, I would say like the pandemic, like especially like 2020, 2021, 2022, like I made friends on Twitter. Like I have friends now who like Joe, for example, like we really kind of
that's how I know
and
Joe.
Posting about the same thing. Right. So I feel like it's a shame too that like we have less and less shared spaces, not to make it too political too, but like we have like less and less, were they ever safe spaces? Probably not. But we have less perceived safe spaces than we ever had anymore for community on the internet. And it makes me sad.
We can get political. I don't care. I want to. I mean, I think it's important to not act like those things aren't happening. But even like to the point you were making, like I feel like during that pandemic period, like 2021 to 2022, I feel like it was like so easy to create like sameness or you know have those shared interests and like connect with people. And now with like as these platforms are being like really becoming so political and polarized and who is running them and like what the priorities are, like anyone who doesn't fit into that box, like I feel like you're just not being boosted as you once were, whether that means like by the algorithm or just like by being empowered by the platform itself. Like they say they want to be like a place for a community town square, but I don't think it's for necessarily our community. It's maybe for people who felt like they were left out beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. And it worries me for like so many reasons. For everything I just said before about like so much of my identity was tied into having those spaces and being able to like, again, I was like posting about Buffy on Tumblr. Like there was like a community for everything. And now it's weird. It's hard to reckon with the fact that like I have a career in media based off of the culture I consume and my perspective on those things, being able to share those perspectives with people via my writing. And it makes me sad that I don't think we have an environment where you can kind of foster perspective anymore in that way through media and have a safe space to talk about it. And again, we still are posting, like, please, I just posted like 7 different memes about different Lady Gaga songs on my Instagram story. So like, I'm not saying that like we aren't consuming culture.
But that's your catered, you know, your Instagram friends. And like, even if or like your close friend story, like if you're sharing memes on there, like that's people that you have met previously and you've like catered this because you know that they're going to also enjoy it or find it funny or whatever. But like, I feel like there's not the same like a opportunity. Like I would not be talking to Jared right now if I had not come across Joe's content on Twitter 3 years ago and had him on the podcast and like gone and seen Titanic, and like that all was because I saw Joe's posts on Twitter. Like some random person that I did not know, we had common interests, right? Like I feel like I do not spend as much time on that platform as I used to, because I feel like it's just not a place I want to spend my time. It makes me feel stressed rather than enjoying myself.
Yeah, it's really hard to reckon with what. And I feel like I came into working in media pretty late. Like I was like 25. I had my whole theater career already. And I feel like I cut my teeth and came in at a specific time. And now it's really challenging, especially now, like, it is not the easiest to find work. It's hard to be staffed. It's hard to information is so spread out in so many different ways. It's like hard to grab attention. And I think, I feel like such an internet kid. Like there's just no way to not, it's just like the age we grew up in. And it is scary to see how out of control it all is, especially when like so much of who I am, my livelihood, what I do is tied to that, whether I like it or not.
On the bright side, I feel like at least the TikTok For You page is so catered to us all individually.
Yes, we do have that. Well, that's what I think is such a strength of TikTok, even though we can definitely have some critiques of it too. What I underestimated the most before I downloaded it, like in 2020, was the entertainment value and the discoverability. And that's all about discovery. Even if you follow people, your For You page is like pumping out content to you. And it is super algorithmic, but I do think that like you are able to discover things and really learn things. And I feel like that is what kind of makes it one of the most viable platforms right now, because like it does feel like a place where like there is growth and community, and like, but now people are already nostalgic. It's so funny. Like when like we thought the ban was going to be permanent, we're like nostalgic for the TikTok that it used to be versus now. You know what I mean? Like people are like, oh my God, like I miss like 2020, 2021 TikTok when like we were just doing these things. And now it's like, so I think we're always going to be nostalgic and miss what came before. And I can be nostalgic all day about like my high school years and how I came up. But I do think that there is a distinct difference now.
Yeah, I love my little For You page. Thank you to my FBI agent for catering it. Like, how else am I supposed to watch the Traitors finale and then go on TikTok and watch 3 hours of people talking about it?
I know.
I love it. And like, I mean, even with like my For You page knows that I love an influencer drama. So of course I am front and center for the back and forth between like Rosanna Pansino, Trisha Paytas, and Tana Mojo. And then also Hannah Berner and Paige DeSorbo's Vanity Fair red carpet. I was front and center for that discourse, and that was gonna be my hyperfixation, but I just felt it was gonna take too long to fully share that. But no, I love like, you know, how people respond to cancellations. It's so interesting. I don't think they did it the right way, but anyways. Okay, I want to go back to your high school years, because you said that all this media was coming out and like it was kind of starting to like slowly but surely like inform like your queerness and help you like pinpoint that. Is there like a moment or like something that you can like that you can like call back to, or that you think of where it's like, this is kind of where it locked in that like I knew that I was gay?
The media for sure is everything I talked about, like Glee and especially Lady Gaga. But the life-wise, again, I was at this performing arts high school and in community. And I didn't even realize like I was like already in molds of found family already, and a safety that I think a lot of kids don't have. And I feel so grateful for that I was able to be around other out people, other closeted people. But like we had like a subliminal thing. Like my friends, my close friends, we were all kind of coming out around the same time. We had teachers we could talk to and actually open up to about these things in a safe way. Other queer teachers. I was so inundated. Like I would go to my public high school, then I would go to my performing arts high school. And then my sophomore year to senior year to like prepare for college auditions, I was then doing private dance and private voice lessons after that. So I was like in school. I would leave my house at 7 and I wouldn't get home till like 9:30, 10 o'clock. Then I would do my homework. Then I would do it again. And then on the weekends, I would be rehearsing for shows. Like I was like doing musical theater like all the time. And if not, I was dancing or singing or getting better. So I was constantly surrounded by, at school and in my personal life, socially, like by other people in community. And if they weren't gay, they were certainly allies, or like my best friend from high school, Kayla, I came out to her my senior year over BlackBerry Messenger. And we went to the same performing arts high school together.
I'm just imagining you like on your BlackBerry, like typing like the little keyboard, like I am gay, hitting send, like.
Yeah, and I think that is like, again, I was so fortunate to have that. I don't even know what my story would have been if I didn't go to the performing arts high school. I think it definitely would have taken a little bit more time. One of the great joys of it is that it's like so many people who feel outcast or maybe didn't fit in where they went to school, but then have a place. It was like so socialized. I don't know what your upbringing was like. Like from second grade until high school, like I never moved. So like, you go with the same kids from elementary school, then middle school, there are more kids added, but you're still around the same people. And then in high school. So like for me to be socially taken out, it was giving Hannah Montana best of both worlds. Like I was presenting differently in my performing arts high school than I was like code switching basically. And then I was in my public high school. And then I kind of didn't want to do that anymore. And I came out my senior year everywhere. And then it was like for my friends to know. And it was such a wild time. Again, at the same time that culturally things were happening like that. But then once I went to college is I think when it was so exciting everything was new. I could just like introduce myself as is. Because even my performing arts high school friends, it was a process. Like we all came out together, whereas like this, I could like step into the scene as Jared.
Yes.
As Jared as I thought. And now I'm like, oh my God, I still did not even know who I was just personally, but I thought I did.
Yeah. And you went to Point Park University. You got your degree in musical theater. Is there like, and maybe this is a both and to like senior year as well, and you're just becoming more comfortable with your sexuality, whether you're in or you're out of the closet, but like, is there guys in like your cast that you're like starting to like, oh, I have a crush on this person and I want to like see where that goes? Like, how do you start to become comfortable with exploring the romantic side of being gay as well? Again,
different than the performing arts high school. From the second I got there,
when you are in
no, girl, absolutely not. When you like get like a BFA or like a musical theater degree, you are in, again, a very concentrated environment. So like your graduating class in your university kind of is a non-factor. Like it is like who you're getting the same exact degree in. And we had a class of, I think we started at 40, but then we wound up whittling down. We were like 28 or 29. And we were mostly boys, almost all gay, almost all out when we got there. So it was a very...
Were you guys all in the same dorm, like building?
Yeah. There were only two dorm buildings. Then we all moved off campus. So like it was a very... And then we had acting majors too. Most of them were gay too. And then all the upperclassmen. Okay. So like I was thrust into... As much as my performing arts high school was safe, we were all kind of coming out together. I was thrust into everyone was from all over the country. A lot of people were out. So it was like immediately a different, again, in a way that I'm kind of grateful for. It was like a college experience. Like a lot of my coming out trauma and stuff was like, I had already been able to move through. So I kind of did step into college.
You were able to just like go in and explore. And like, I bet like those bunk beds were shaking. There's
oh my God.
I mean, come on. There's no way they weren't.
Not for me. I think for a lot of people. But like I was able to like really experience and like have a first crush and like follow that through and go through the experience of like just queer friendship. Like I feel like that's what I learned the most from. Yes, I had like romantic experiences and like that was really great for me to explore that. But I think a big part of coming out too is like, again, being able to found family and community and shared experience. And like, I was very lucky that I found other gay men who we all were like going through experiences together. And like, we all had breakups and ups and downs. We were able to like lift each other up and take care of each other and not, and fight and, and like, and disagree. And like, it was I learned a lot in those 4 years, I'll say.
It sounds like this was like a very like positive overall experience. Like you were able to have more of like I don't know. I feel like my experience going into the gay community in college was like very, very sexualized. Like when I went to college was the first time I ever like downloaded Grindr or any dating app. And like Grindr was like my first exposure to the gay community. So like that was a much more like overwhelming or like traumatizing experience versus like, it seems like you were able to have like studying musical theater and having this like almost like built-in friend group almost to like those you were taking classes with, where like you were spending so much time together and you were able to like focus on like looking and determining what like queer friends looks like before you were then trying to like jump in and like having to like sexualize yourself and like be focused on like what someone wants in that. You were able to have much more healthy relationships with gay people.
Yes, and it also wasn't perfect though. Yes to the fact that like I was able to, outside of like Grindr and apps and stuff like that, be able to find queer dynamics and relationships and things in college. Also though, it's such a concentrated competitive environment where you not only like, yes, I'm making friends and also dating and like I'm around all these queer people, and then also like my best girlfriends, and we're all like together. We're also all competing for the same parts, and we're all like, it's so everything's competitive from, you know what I mean? Like relationship stuff, friendship stuff, getting parts, like wanting to make it to this step so that I could be on Broadway one day, like all those things that like can be really challenging. It's just a different type of challenging. I would say my biggest hurdles and like learning lessons were more racially, because I, again, was like in an environment where I had come out, and that intersectionality was, it was just different. Cause again, like my performing arts high school was pretty diverse, and as was my college class. But as we started to get older, and there was like this club where we would go to, they would have like a 21 and under night. So if you were like 18 and up, you could go to this club on Thursday nights, and we would go. I'm from Connecticut. I went to school in Pittsburgh, and there was just a culture shock going to Pennsylvania and like going out and in gay environments like that. It just was like very kind of traumatizing.
Can you like take us back to like maybe like a first time that you went out and you experienced that shock for the first time?
Going out, it was like so white, like overwhelmingly. And my class didn't even look like that, to be honest, but which is fine. Again, it's like what I was used to growing up, but it definitely became a thing of, I started to internalize my own self-worth based off of experiences going out, based off like what like my other like classmates, how they would interact with guys, and like how they were valued, and like all those same things when you're kind of coming out and like you start to really internalize what your own self-worth is. It was a really weird and intense place to come from, especially just being from the East Coast, and not that like there isn't racism here, or that like I don't experience that, you know, going out of New York. Pennsylvania is just like not what I'm used to. I had never been exposed to the middle of the country like that. It just felt I felt like even more of an outsider socially going out. And it took a lot for me to like kind of rebuild my confidence in a different way, that like, it was a lot for me to internally kind of reckon with.
How did you reckon with it? Like, how did you process it?
Well, I think at like 18, I like thought things as fact. Like I just like go home and be like, oh, like, I guess I suck. Or like, I guess like, I'm just like not all that interesting or whatever. And then as I, of course, like got older and like grew up a little bit more and like came into myself more, I was able to like really be like, that has nothing to do with like who Jared is, like what my own self-worth is, like what I have to offer romantically to anybody, or even just like friendship wise. Like it wasn't even just like a sexual romance thing. It just was like in general feeling like super disregarded. And then also being able to like not value that. And also I had such shared community and such like really close friends with other Black queer people, especially like my junior and senior year of college. And other just like people of color who were queer too, where I was kind of like, whoa, like this, like the environments that I grew up in, especially in my elementary, middle school years, and then even in the beginning of my college years, were like, it was tough for me to feel like I didn't have people who looked like me or had shared experience. And then once I was able to find that, I was like, oh my God, no, like this is just a fucked situation that I'm in. And I was thrilled. That's just, I love my college time, and I have like friends for life from that time, and some of my most favorite people in the whole world. Culturally, being in Pennsylvania after like 4 years was enough for me, just based off what I was used to. So I was running to New York by the time I was done.
Yeah, you found that community, they got you through, and then you were like, see ya.
Yes. Yeah. I think, again, when you first start to go out in general, no matter what, it's a lot, because you are like kind of gauging like, oh my God, there's body things, there's race things. Like we could spend a whole episode talking about going out and gay culture and stuff. But I think that I learned a lot, and I still was in safe-ish environments. Like I still was like going out with like a group of gays who were like my classmates. And it was like Thursday night, we would just go. We were like 19. They'd stamp our wrists so we couldn't drink, but we would just like go and be like a whole thing. And it was like, even though I would like leave bummed, I still like had my girls. We would just like go back and like order pizza, and our like girlfriends would like come with us and they would have a ball, of course. And like, I just think it was, I learned a lot about myself. It was weird because I was like in such a concentrated environment in high school where my confidence took a hit when I went to college in that way, because I was, I was like one of 20 versus being like thrust into like a brand new city and the whole going out culture and stuff.
Yeah. You almost had to just like rebuild yourself back up to face like those different challenges, which I feel like something that is unfortunately like common for people to have to do, like to
Very
constantly you feel like you've like made it, and then all of a sudden you're like 2 steps back once again.
Right. Olivia Rodrigo, 1 step forward.
Yes.
3 steps back.
I almost said it and I held myself back. But you did it.
You can always say that with me.
When you were studying acting in college, like were you starting to take like any like or audition for like professional gigs like in the summer?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough when you're in college because like you can audition, but also like you want to get your degree. So it's like kind of a weird thing. I was auditioning for Broadway shows until my senior year, but I was doing like summer stock auditions, which was like, regional shows in the summer. I spent the summer before my sophomore year and my junior year doing these like children theater tour shows in Albany, New York, where I would do, I don't know if like growing up, like in my elementary school, we'd have like musical theater performers would like come. It'd be like an assembly thing. There'd be like a musical, like a touring show. That'd be like super educational, 30 minutes, and then they'd like leave.
I never got that. Wow, I'm jealous. I wish.
Yeah. So I did that in like all of Albany, which was like so cool. So you'd like go to different elementary schools, perform, do talkbacks after. And then, I did like summer stock shows before my junior year and then before my senior year. So that was kind of fun too, to like, again, it's like summer camp. Like then you're thrown in another environment where you meet like all these other people who are having the same experiences as you, just at different colleges. And then after I graduated, I worked through that summer stock, and then I moved to New York in that October.
Do you remember what your first Broadway audition was?
I think Book of Mormon.
Okay.
Either Book of Mormon or Hamilton. Those were like big shows. I mean, they're still big, but they were like even bigger when I graduated in 2017. So like I had appointments for that week.
You have your resume stacked from all these tours and like your various like theater experiences and plays, musicals that you've been in growing up and in college, but like moving to New York and walking into these auditions for the first time, what is that like? It's
a lot. It's a different beast. Again, it's like, so everyone, if you think I'm one person from one town in one state who had this experience and it's like, and wants to be on Broadway. And there are like millions of kids all over the country who want that. So it's really competitive. And it took me a while to like kind of find my bearings. Like my whole first year here, I was auditioning and making it far through things. But it took me a minute to just like get my sea legs kind of, and like work a job, like make rent. Like you're doing all the things that you need to do to just be like an adult. And like live on your own really for the first time, because college is living on your own, but kind of not really. It's still way more structured. And like I was working at Lululemon and like also still growing. Like when I was 22, I feel like I was like barely an adult. And I still was like figuring out who I was. I still was like learning about myself sexually and like in my own identity and things, and going out in New York and like making friends here, and all those things were happening while also like trying to audition for shows, like for theater professionally at like the highest level in the world. So it's a lot, you know,
a lot of things to juggle.
Yeah. And it took me a minute, but then I would say about after like a year I got here is when like, it was nice. I started to see a lot more success, and I got my first agent, and I was able to like really do theater full time, which was great until of course the pandemic, but it was really cool that I was able to be like, wait, I'm only doing theater now. This is what I came here to do. You
had spent like your whole like education and career like working towards this. Like it felt like it was kind of finally locking into place, and like the things that you had like hoped and dreamed for were like finally happening, and then all of a sudden like it's quite literally just gone, like disappeared, like industry turned off. When that all happens, like how do you react to that, and how do you kind of try to figure out, okay, what is my next move?
Yeah, I think I was like a lot of people, just kind of in a state of shock for a little bit, just because it felt so out of left field. Again, I was super fortunate that like I still had an agent. So like I even still was kind of like sending in self-tapes and stuff throughout the early days of the pandemic for things that we didn't even know if the shows were going to happen, or for TV stuff whenever they were going to start filming TV again. Like I still was very lucky that I had that. And also I had some like in between shows, I was a personal assistant. And right before I went on tour, I had quit, but I always maintained such a good relationship with her that she was able to hire me virtually to like do stuff for her. So like things were able to happen where I was able to like kind of keep myself busy. But it was a very weird time and a crisis in my soul a little bit about like, who am I if no theater? Like, because that's all I had done. Mind you, though, I have always been, again, so interested in pop culture, and had already been, and also I'm just a writer in general. I already had started taking, while I was on tour, I just had this thing inside me. I was like, I need to take like a screenwriting class. So I had taken a couple of those and a playwriting class. And I started like writing my own essays just for myself, like in my own Google Docs, and I'd send them to my friends about like albums that came out, or like little like revisionist ones. Like it was like the 20th or 30th. No, I think it was the 20th anniversary of Jagged Little Pill or something. And I like wrote like a little essay and I just sent it to my friends. And I was like, just like, these are like my musings or whatever. So it's interesting now to look back that I was already kind of percolating and doing those things, because about 2 months into the pandemic, or 3, is when I was like, looking at my watch, like the theater's not coming back anytime soon. Like I packed a bag for 2 weeks until we could flatten the curve. And, I was still in Connecticut, like at my mom's, where I didn't even have a bedroom anymore, like for a year. So I was like, how are we going to do this? And I started to write again. And like, I launched a Substack and started to like pitch myself, and with kind of no help, like I kind of just like started throwing my stuff out there, and got really, really fortunate that like I was able to get some things published pretty quickly, and then started this media career. And it's really weird to think that had that not happened, I think I have always been a writer. I was always going to get here. I just don't think it would have happened at this accelerated rate had theater not been completely taken away from me. And then I was able to express myself creatively in a different way.
Would you write these stories like independently and then be like, hey, XYZ publication, I have this story? Or is it the other way around?
It's a bit of both. Some I had already had written, and then others, when you're pitching, you like pitch the general idea, and a few lines of what you think the story is going to be about. And then I was able to do, like I was doing like a lot of anniversary stories and about stories about shows that I love. Like I'm a big Charm person. I did a story for Sci-Fi about that. Like I was able to do like anniversary style essay, like pop culture, kind of like my Substack now. It's like, it's oral history kind of, but also still essay based. So it's always like from my perspective, I'm still speaking about like my own experiences engaging with the art. I wrote about Brandy. Like I started writing about music a lot. From that, then I had applied for like a daily news position at the Griot like 6 months earlier when I had no credits. And then they kind of came back around and they saw some of the stuff that I had published. And they were super interested in me coming on as a daily news writer, still freelance at the time though. So I was working full-time hours. I was essentially staffed, but I was freelancing technically. So that is when I was kind of thrust into journalism, which is very different than just, essay writing and creative writing. But I'm a very well-read person and someone who I was like a kid who always had a book in my hand, and I read a lot of news. So I was just kind of thrust into a newsroom and a daily pitch meeting and all these things. And I kind of just really learned and cut my teeth and busted my ass to learn AP style and to learn all these a lot, just hard rules, things I already knew, but really, really learn how to be a journalist in this way. And I was so supported and so grateful there for the team around me and my direct boss, because I was given a lot of opportunity pretty quick. So if someone couldn't do an interview, they would throw it to me. And again, that was such a blessing of the time that it was and the work from home culture that I was able to do these interviews just from home. I didn't have to be in a studio or in an office. So it was kind of crazy, but also it's not too different from acting, interviewing. It's a lot of thinking on the fly. I'm a very conversational interviewer. So I never wanted to feel I have beats and things I want to hit, but I want the talent to feel super comfortable and open up so that it can be a different type of interview than what they've been doing all day. So I did that for a year.
Were these interviews you were doing like press junket-esque interviews?
Yeah. They were press junket interviews or also pitches for us. So it'd be a mix of both. So like if someone was like promoting a new book or a new product, we'd maybe interview them and it would be an exclusive. But a lot of times they would be junkets too, which are so fun, but also so wild because it's just like, and that's like, again, whenever people like share junket clips and I think can be like really hard on people, it is not easy and not to like, it looks really glamorous and it is so, I'm so fortunate of like all the junkets I've done and I've been able to meet some of my favorite actors of all time and amazing people. It is a very high pressure environment and you only have such a short amount of time. Everybody's at work, but you want it to feel and look like you've just been sitting there hanging out all day. But it's like, it's a lot of work. And I think it's like, really hard, especially when you only have such a short amount of time to like really get something, not only that's going to resonate and do well for the site. It's not even that, but something that just like readers are going to connect to or like a new thing, you know? So I think that I was really thrown into that, having never done that. But like I've watched, again, I'm like a kid who's like consumed so much culture. Like I've watched junket interviews over and over and over again. And then suddenly I was there. And then after a year of freelancing with them, I was hired, staffed as like the full-time TV and film writer there, which was like amazing. I was like, I've been writing for a year and a half and now I'm like staffed at a publication. Like that's crazy. All while still pursuing theater. But it was still so slow. And I had finally moved back to New York after a year. And then I was able to kind of that's when in-person things kind of started. So then I was kind of able to start doing in-person junkets, which are just so much better because you really feel the energy of the people. And yeah, I like cut my teeth and learned so much.
You did the damn thing and they said you are the elite employee and they gave you that job as you deserved. Press junkets, I feel like for those who aren't familiar, it's like when people see a celebrity sitting behind a backdrop and like the poster they're promoting and it's just a rotate of reporters. That's what those are. And yeah, I cannot imagine like having that tight of a time frame and being like, you have 2 minutes, ask them questions. How long do you usually have with people?
It depends on the project and the timing. You can have anywhere from 10 minutes to 3. So, wow. And sometimes you can have 3 minutes and there's 4 actors.
Damn.
So you're like, okay, how am I going to find a question where like I want them all to hit these things? Then also you have maybe like requirements from your bosses or your editors or things you know you want to hit, or like you have like ideas, or you have like roundup videos where you want to ask all the talent the same question so that you can get a video like all compiled together. Like but also like it's a really long day for them. It's a really long day for us. It's an even longer day for them. But also it is such a blessing just to be able to do it. It is so exciting. It is like thrilling, but it is work. And I think like that's kind of the difference sometimes when, again, a lot of clips will be taken out of context or will go viral and you can be hard on either the talent or the journalist. And I do think sometimes it helps to just have a little bit of grace to know that like it's contractually a part of what everyone is doing and everyone just wants to show up and do a good job. But it is so cool. Like I would be like pinching myself at certain junkets I was able to do where I was like, oh my God, like, oh, this is crazy. And it's like such a rush, but it's not that different again from auditioning. So I feel like my theater background really helped me in high pressure situations, just like throwing myself into things. Especially
like for like bigger junkets where you literally have like 3 minutes of time. How do you come up with questions for those? Because these celebrities, there's a high likelihood that they're getting the same question over and over and over again. And I would think you would want to stand out and like give them something unique. Like what is your approach when you're getting ready for those?
It's a fine line. I mean, you luckily get to screen anything before. So like you're never you're always watching it before. So like I usually will watch whatever the project is and then I'll come up with my own questions. And I always want to ride the line of like keeping it to the project. It's really hard in a junket. If you have an exclusive interview, you can go wide. But like I'm not going to interview someone for Wicked and then talk about a movie they did 5 years ago.
Yeah.
If I have time for it, and maybe I'll like squeeze something in. But for the most part, you really want to stick to because on behalf of the work you want to do, but also they are promoting the movie. So, but you can find ways to ask a question where you kind of know where it may go and where that another project may be brought up, or like being like, you know, how does this project stand out versus like all the other things you've done? Then you kind of get that answer, you know, but you're still talking about the project. And it's fun because it's so collaborative. At least where I worked, like it was always like a conversation with my bosses and I, and figuring out how we wanted to attack this, how we wanted to approach it. And it is a blessing to be able to do those things, be able to talk to those people and to kind of like be in that system. And then it's kind of fun too, when you start to do them a lot and you start to see the same talent or you start to see the same people. And it takes a lot there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen to make all the media that we consume. So it's fun to meet a lot of the people. And that was like pretty heavy TV and film. The Housewives stuff, which became my main beat, is even more fun because that you have more time and their talent, but it's just different as opposed to like when you're talking like an actor or a musician or a director, it's way more about the art, which I also like too as an artist.
You have versatility.
Cool.
You do it all.
Yes. Yes.
Looking specifically at those junket interviews, is there one that you have as a favorite?
One of the coolest for sure was I got to go to London to the Avatar 2 premiere and interview the whole cast.
That's cool.
It was very cool. So I got to interview James Cameron, Kate Winslet, and now Oscar winner Zoe Saldana and Sam Worthington. And it just was a cool, those are like famous people. And it was just like cool to sit there in London having screened like what would become like the second highest grossing movie of all time after Avatar. I was so proud of the work that I did. I feel like I really did good work and got great interviews. So I would say that, and I got to do right before the strikes. So this was like another little break that again, it was like, I'm in a different field and there's also like a crisis of like, what am I going to do? Right before the strikes, I got to do the new Haunted Mansion movie 2 summers ago. I went to New Orleans and got to screen it and then got to interview the cast. And Josie and the Pussycats, the 2001 movie, is my favorite movie of all time. And Rosario Dawson is in Haunted Mansion. She's also a big part of Josie and the Pussycats. So I did the whole interview and it was great. But then at the end, I just got to tell her that it's my favorite movie of all time. And we had a little moment about it. And like, that was like a personal, I was like, this is everything. Like, I don't even know what else, you know? I'm like, I guess that's it. But yeah, the junkets, like the hard TV film junkets were so fun. And it's now I'm doing way more reality reporting, which is like the world I want to stay in. But I'm super fond of that time that I had, that I even got to do that for as long as I did, being like a hard TV film writer. Well,
you did that. You spent your time, and now you don't have to be as serious. I mean, you still are serious. Amazing professionalism. But I swear, Jared, whenever I like have Instagram open and I tap on your story, there's like some other housewife that you're with. A few weeks ago, like literally being in Angie K's living room, I'm like, okay, Jared, it won't work. What has it been like for you to get to meet all these people and like ask them firsthand about the drama or the season or whatever it may be? Like, has there been an interview so far that you've liked the most?
All of them. I know that sounds so corny, but like Housewives was always something that I started watching. I felt late to it at the time. Like I started watching in 2016 and it was season 7 of Jersey, season 11 of Orange County. And I was in a summer stock and I had my iPad and I downloaded the Bravo app and I was like, Teresa had just gotten out of jail and people were talking about the season. I was like, let me just start these 2 shows that are on right now. And my friends were obsessed with it. And I was like hooked from then. And it's something I was always passionate about. I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would be involved in it in the way that I am and like be able to interview them in this way. And as I started, once I was staffed at the Griot, I did kind of notice that there was a bit of it's such a strong niche and like the audience is craving Bravo content all the time. And they covered Bravo before, but there was no one like really dedicating a significant amount of time to coverage in that way. And my boss immediately saw that I was obsessed with it. And like she had started pitching, I was doing recap stories for Salt Lake City and for Potomac every Sunday. And then I think Salt Lake City at that time was on Thursdays. So I was doing stories that would publish right when it ended. And then I started doing interviews and it kind of snowballed from there, which is so cool that I got to really interview these people. And then like you start to see them and it's cool now, 5 years in, that there are people who like, I was their first interview. So like all the new Miami girls, like I was their first interview on their first day in their first ever junket. And they were some of my first Housewives interviews, you know? So then I'm able to like, you know, or people who like go and come back and I can be like, oh my God, I'm so happy you're back. Or it's been really cool. And it's something that I just think like Housewives, as Andy Cohen says all the time, I do think that there are modern day soaps. Like they are what soap operas were to to gays then, and they are to us now. Like, we treat it like sports. I think it's like such a fascinating look at sociology and just the ways in which we communicate, and friendship dynamics and celebrity and status, like all those things. I just think I geek out about it. And it's been really cool to be able to kind of carve out this niche for myself that now, now that I'm not a staff TV and film writer, I like cover Bravo exclusively. And yeah, it's pretty dope. I'm proud of a lot of what I've done in media, but I'm really proud of like the little space that I've been able to carve for myself to be able to cover it in any capacity.
Well, I think what we need is you at BravoCon, like moderating the panels. I feel like that would be everything. Like, all these women trust you, so they'll be like just spilling everything. I think that'd be monumental. It
has been cool to even just get to go to BravoCon. Like, I'm very fortunate. I'm in the press room there. I get to interview them, and moderating panels is also would be a blast as well. But like, even just being there is like, it's like WWE or something. Like, it is like to be. Have you been to BravoCon before?
No, I want to go. Would you recommend?
You got to go to Vegas this year.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's so. Well, here's the thing. It is pricey, but I think that.
Is it like everything is like a package deal, like with hotel and everything, or is it like literally just the tickets that are crazy?
I think it's just tickets, but there are also different tiers. So like, I feel like there are days like you get the schedule and then you can figure out if you just like want to do Saturday. Now it's such an experience. Like, if you're going to fly out to Vegas, maybe you just want to do all the days. But like, you get to see, even if you don't wait in line for pictures, just going to the panels alone, you get to see that talent. And you'll just be like walking around and you're like, oh my God, there's Melissa Gorga. Like, oh my God, there's Lisa Barlow. Oh, there's Kathy Hilton. Like, they're just like all walking around. Oh, Kenya Moore. Like, you're just like, whoa, like, it's just crazy. Oh, Captain Sandy. Like, it's just like the most random things. And it is like a very cool environment. I selfishly love it when it's here just because it's easy for me in New York, but going to Vegas was a blast. So like, it's definitely such a cool, and it's such a one-of-a-kind thing. And there was a pause last year at BravoCon, so I feel like the hunger for it will be even more this year. And they also, so much news and story comes out of it. Like, I feel like in the last season of Roni, there was something else too. What was another? Oh, all of Beverly Hills this year. It's like what Dorit, or like what Erica said about Dorit and PK at BravoCon 2 years ago. Like, it's like, it kind of generates story now, which I think is so cool too. And the fourth wall's so kind of broken in that way.
I love it.
Yeah. It's really cool. And love it.
I'm going to actually look into it because I think that'd be so fun. And I have a few girlfriends who love Bravo. It'd be like a fun little girls trip. But Salt Lake City, let's start here. I found like your ranking of all the Housewives seasons that you did for Parade. I saw this season was your number one. I loved it. I feel like everyone thought they were going to like flop without Monica, but I think like the newbies and Bronwyn and Brittany, as a friend of, they really did what needed to be done to keep the girls on their toes and to keep the dynamics fresh. Who would you say were the winners of this season, and who would you say maybe needs to clock in a little bit more for season 6?
That's a good question. And thanks for shouting out my story. That was really sweet. The winner, this is such a corny answer, but the winner is just the show itself. It is so fun when a show really hits its stride in this way. And again, you did think that after Monica, you're like, how the hell is the show what are they going to do? Like, they hit such a stride. But this happens, I would say, Real Houses of New Jersey seasons 3 to 5, which was like Teresa, Caroline, Jacqueline Larita, Melissa, Kathy McKeely, was like such a solid dynamic. And the show was blockbuster. Like, it was, it's hard to even differentiate because they're all amazing seasons and they're like so embedded in what that show is. Atlanta, I would say a huge run, but definitely once it was like Nene, Kenya, Portia, Cynthia, Candy, Phaedra, like that run of like 3 to 4 seasons was like a lot of these shows have these runs that are like Orange County, very similar. They had a run once it was like Shannon, Heather, and Tamra for like those 3-4 seasons. Like, you have these runs that are just incredible and they hit a stride, and Salt Lake City really has hit that. And it has always been good. But as I wrote in my recap, like if there's any season that wasn't very good, it was season 3. It just was like probably the shakiest season of that show. And the way that they were able to pivot in 4 and maintain that momentum in 5 is unreal. So I just think all of them are winners in that regard. And that sounds so corny, but they really are. The standout is Mary, though. and Angie second. I think the story that Mary was able to share, how she really stepped into this role, and it feels like we're seeing a different person. She resonated so much with everyone. I just think she nailed it. And Angie, their friendship together was just one of the strongest parts of this season. And she has this refreshing earnesty to her approach in Housewives that I think is, like we were talking about earlier, about it's okay to love things and it's okay to stand things. I think the way she approaches this, even her being like, I'm so excited to sit next to Andy, like every housewife feels that way. There's no housewife who wouldn't be excited to be next to him, but like your pride, like I would be too prideful to say that, you know, but like, I feel like her pride doesn't get in her way of anything. I think she's a star. This is just a perfect season. I don't want to mess with anything at all. I do think that the OGs sometimes can feel a little stuck in their ways. Heather, Lisa, Meredith, and Whitney. Whitney less so.
She clocks in right when she needs to, and she pushes the thing. She pushes it forward. Yeah,
I think so. I think, and I love me some. I mean, I'm obsessed with Meredith and Lisa and Heather. Honestly, but they're all great. But I think that you saw a bit of a course correct. I think the first half of the season was a little tough for Heather, just like navigating the Bronwyn of it all. But then it kind of balanced out by the end, and I think. I just don't want any of the OGs to kind of overthink it. I think they already are doing an amazing game. I think the strategy is fantastic. I think they just need to keep that momentum going. You know, like the only thing that felt a little, while it was a great finale, the text message game felt a little heavy-handed for me. It just like wasn't, but how do you top season 4 finale? You just can't. Yeah. That's the best episode ever. But it just felt a little like they didn't need it. I don't think. Although it was an amazing thing, just like the way it was laid out felt a little heavy-handed. But it was still a great episode.
A lot of people say that Salt Lake City is like a parody of the Housewives franchise itself.
Yeah.
And that moment almost felt so like the producers told Heather to do this, that it was like almost like the cherry on top of like, this is the campiest housewife show possible.
Yes.
I think a lot of the Housewives, a lot to your point, like some of those OGs, like they play their role so well that like if they just kind of are there and are present and do their reactions throughout the season, have their little moments, their quips, but then they have their 1 or 2 episodes where they really clock in and do the thing, like it's like, yes, like I understand why you're part of this group. I think the one note for me is I feel after season 4 Heather was like so emboldened in like her viral moment that she had, that I think she felt like she was above the women a little bit going into this season, or like she was the reason why the show was successful. And I almost felt like when they went on Bronwyn's trip and Heather wasn't there, I felt like it almost showed that the show didn't need Heather to be good.
Yeah.
And
well, that's the risk of those things.
Yeah. She thought she was playing this like, I'm the queen of this show and I'm not going to be present on this trip, because she could have put in the effort realistically to mend the fences and be present on that, but for whatever reason that didn't happen. And it almost to me felt like at the end of the season when she was swooping in with this text message bit, it felt like she was like trying to like almost recapture that power, or to recapture that like narrator role that she sometimes has on the show. And I feel like she just needs to have some sort of bit or something like funny, or like a good storyline in the next season that like really reaffirms her as like this centerpiece of the show, which I feel like she very much so is.
I 1000% agree with you. And I do think that that's the thing about Housewives. You're only as good as your last episode. Sometimes it's your last confessional. Like, and the audience is very fickle. They will love you one moment, they will hate you the next. And you just kind of have to keep it trucking. And what I do appreciate about Heather is that she's really good at temperature checking and course correcting. Like season 3 was not the best season for her or Whitney at all. And I think especially her, and like with the black eye of it all, there was like a lot of faith lost in her. I think she's such a savvy person that like, I suspect she's going to have a great season 6, because season 4, her guardedness, the way she was projecting Monica and Jen stuff onto Bronwyn was pretty transparent. And she said that, just like, I have no trust in new people. And not that Bronwyn's behavior was perfect, but like the fight with the trip, like what I think Bronwyn's strength is too, is that she really does, in a way that I'm trying to think of other housewives in even different cities. She does meet people where they are. So she will come in with, I know I did this and that, and I'm sorry that hurt you. I'll meet you here. Where can you meet me? And I feel like housewives are usually used to like, you did this to me and I'm pissed about it. It's the strongest housewife show on Bravo right now. And I think it's just in such good shape. I think they really found the formula, and it always had the bones. My hot take is I think people are a little too nostalgic in the way that they romanticize the first few seasons. They're really good and there are great moments, but they weren't like this. And they like the bones were there, but like if you actually rewatch season 1, by like see episode 4 or 5, there's not much left. Mary's in her closet half the time. They go on this weird Vegas trip. Season 2 is really, really good up until the Veil trip. Season 3 is all over the place. So I think that like it's okay that the show has grown. Like I don't think it's been this like there's been no misses. I think it has been misses, but like you need misses to grow and then to become one of the supremes. Yeah. 2
things on that. One, I personally am on the boat that I don't want Jen Shah to come back to this show. Everyone posts about like when her release date keeps getting moved up. They're like, oh, she's going to be back. And I'm like, I don't want Jen Shah on this show. Like, I love what the women have now. And I almost get nervous that like some of the OGs are like trying to prepare for Jen Shah's return or like open that door for her to come back. Just in a little bit of how I think it was Meredith and Heather were acting
Lisa.
in the
Heather,
Lisa and during the reunion, it just felt like they were opening that door for her, and it's like, do we really want that back? Like, it's so good right now, and so much opportunity. I mean, do you want Jen Shah to return to this show?
I don't think they need it, but I wouldn't put it past them bringing her back. Only because, like, you know, like Teresa came back. I know it's different.
How are the seasons of New Jersey without her when she was in prison?
There aren't. So Teresa only went to jail for a little under a year, I think 10 months, and they paused production. But that was a different situation. Teresa is Teresa, and the show was in a bad spot. Like by season 6 is arguably, a lot of people call that one of the worst Housewives seasons ever. Now that we've had way more, it's absolutely not. But at the time, it was really bad. They cast a bunch of new people that they wound up firing. So they just waited a year. They did a Teresa Checks In special with her family at home, and Melissa and Joe. And then they brought the show back. Like they film, you see her. It is touching. You see her leave and see her family for the first time. So they filmed that whole season, and she's kind of still on probation. So they don't travel internationally. I think they just like go to Vermont. But all that to say, it's obviously not this. And same with Potomac right now. Like they're not going to pause for Karen Huger because the show's just in a better spot. I think it's just a different situation. But I think with Jen, if there is more story to tell, I don't know if she'll have a snowflake again, but like, I bet they would film with her. I don't need it. I don't really want it, but I think they would. It feels like there's a story to tell. I think the only tricky thing, and that was my only thing with season 4, which I think we talked about this a little bit when we talked about Salt Lake before, is that I think there was like a bad faith argument in the morality with Monica. Not that what she did wasn't wrong, and not that she wasn't lying about something, but it became this like, it's weird to me that they would film with Jen and not Monica.
Well, that was kind of in the reunion this season.
It's just weird.
Yeah. I think that's the moment I was referring to. Is I don't even remember what the topic was, but I think Whitney was kind of speaking out against the two who were being more open-minded to being forgiving of Jen for what she did, but then Monica is like this villain that Whitney can't even reach out to. A few weeks ago, you were in Salt Lake City for Sundance and were living your film boy fantasy thriving. But you were also, I was seeing your Sundance stories, like, look so fun. One day I tap on that story and you're with Angie K in her living room. How did that happen, and what was it like to spend some time with her?
It was a Salt Lake City extravaganza at Sundance. It was my 3rd Sundance in a row, and I usually get to see Meredith, and I did get to see her the day before I saw Angie because she always throws a party. But now, as I'm covering Bravo at Parade Magazine, there was just an opportunity to kind of interview her ahead of the last reunion episode, and we kind of just got to break things down. And I did get to go to her house, which is absolutely stunning. And it was just a fantastic interview, and I'm so proud of how it turned out. And I think she was so open and great, and we got to go super deep about things. And I had got to interview her before. I did an interview with her at the top of the season, but it was just a phone call one. And as I said, it's so nice to do like in-person interviews with people because you kind of get that energy. And yeah, it was so great. Again, her earnesty is like a superpower to me. And I just really loved interviewing her, especially after such a stellar season. It's kind of fun to like connect with reality talent in that way after like a victory lap like that, I think.
Yeah, I hope she gets that center snowflake again, because
yes,
she was fulfilling her center snowflake obligations this season for
she
sure.
Deserves.
Yes, she deserves. Maybe she needs like 2 snowflakes in the middle, because she has so many powers. She needs more than one. Last time we talked, I think maybe, I don't know when it was, but one of the episodes we did previously, Jared, like Summer House got like vaguely mentioned. And since then I have locked in and watched all of it. I have always been like a Giggly Squad listener for like the past year and a half, and I really enjoyed their dynamic. And so I was eager to like, I mean, I started with season 3. I didn't watch the first 2 seasons, but I watched season 3 because that's when Hannah and Paige got in. And so there was someone for me to like, oh, I know who they are type of deal. And I just love it. Even to this point, my current stance is that Kyle is my number 1 enemy. Like, I hate that man.
No, I totally get that.
What are you thinking of this season so far?
I think it is, like Salt Lake, an amazing follow-up to an amazing season. Season 8 of Summer House last year was such a great stride for that show. I think in tandem with Vanderpump Rules falling apart in front of our eyes, Summer House has always been like kind of second fiddle in that generation of like young millennial professional working kind of people. You know what I mean? And like even like when Summer House kind of started, there were a lot of crossovers with Stassi and all them. And I think that show just really, in season 5, is their breakout season, the COVID season, which is when I started watching. But that's when like the show really became a bit more of a moment. And I think it's because they were stuck in that house.
That season was so rough to watch.
It is rough to watch, but that was when the show really took off, because the Hannah burner of it all was just big drama. And it just was like really hard to film Bravo shows during COVID. And they were able to make it work because they just didn't leave. Whereas like a lot of the Housewives seasons from then are pretty awful, because Summer House is surveillance. So, you know, they go and film for a concentrated time and there's cameras on them 24/7. Whereas like Housewives is more scene based. It's not like that. When you're on a trip, it is. But outside of that, you're filming, you know, it's scheduled. You have a dinner or a party or this. And last season of Summer House, like they kind of hit a stride again, especially with Wes and Jesse. And now this season just feels like a great continuation of it. And it feels like the most solid group they've had, again, probably since 5. I think like post 5, we had some weird, like there was a new guy every season that just like kind of was a little lame. Maya never really worked. It just was like a weird thing.
Yeah.
As much as people love to bitch about like, oh my God, half of them are almost 40. Why are they? I'm like, I don't care. Like, it's not like an age thing for me.
I wouldn't be mad if they sent Kyle to the old folks home.
I'm screaming, but Kyle's the same age, like Carl, like Lindsay.
This is my issue with Kyle, is I feel like his storyline is the same every single season. Like, it's him and Amanda, they're having some fight, he's staying up till 2 a.m, he is like maybe cheating on her, like it's just Loverboy drama, Loverboy infomercial, and I'm like, there's so much more going on with the rest of the cast that like I like what they're giving more. And it's like, I mean, maybe this is like a side effect of binging the show, because you see it like all back to back, so it's like, okay, I see you have the same exact storyline and you're not giving me anything. Like if he was on the Housewives, he would not be on the show. I mean, he is the OG, so I get it why he's still there, but like if the premise of the show is like going like being young and going to the Hamptons to party on the weekends, I don't think that he like really fits into that category anymore.
I don't think the premise is being young though. And I know that people say that, but even from the beginning, like in the first episode of Summer House Ever, Carl's like, I'm 30 now. He's like, I want to just like go and like, not that your 30s aren't young, but I do think that these shows, and that's where we get so tripped up, like when Vanderpump Rules tried to reboot and it didn't, it has to be about a specific group of people that we're following. So I think it helps to divorce that. Like what's making the last episode so good, and that's where like I hear what you're saying, and I'm not on Kyle's side of the argument, but you're also only as good as your foil. So like we had an amazing Paige moment because Kyle's there. Like there's just an ingredient thing, and what makes it work are the stakes of they've never really been able to talk about the Hannah of it all and the firing and breaking the fourth wall in that way.
I was kind of gagged when like they were showing her like the Giggly Squad like tour poster. I was like, oh my gosh, Hannah Berner exists in this universe? I thought we were like acting like she didn't exist.
Yes. But that's the thing, is that's like, if we had just been like getting rid of people every 2 or 3 seasons and just having new people, like we have shows like that where it's just like The Real World or something. Like I think that Summer House isn't that, and that's okay, because Vanderpump Rules was never that. It was about a specific group of 20-somethings working at SUR, but like this group that had the shared history. Same with Southern Hospitality, why I think it's really taking off too. Like I think casting these shows are way harder than people realize. So like Kyle is Summer House. He just is. And like he could be the greatest villain of the show ever, but like I think he is an important ingredient of it because of the Amanda of it all, because of the Hannah of it all. Now where Craig falls in, like, and now with what it's going to be like I think the reunion's going to be so telling and interesting, and like what this dynamic is like with Kyle and Paige post the breakup. The Hannah of it all, and you didn't watch it as it happened, but still you could like, that season was really tough. I wasn't team Hannah, but I thought they were really hard on her by the end. And I always had this sinking feeling where I was like, it kind of sucks that like Paige was kind of talking just as much shit about Kyle and Amanda, but like kind of got away scot-free. And it feels like Hannah kind of took all the brunt of it. But if you watched it at the time, like the audience was just against her. Like she just like, it just was not working. And the show was able to move on without her, but it was so refreshing to hear Paige be like, and I had to pick up the pieces and make this work with Amanda, and I couldn't talk about Hannah anymore. And I think those dynamics are what's making that show so solid. Just like last season, the Lindsay Carl of it all. Like we've seen them be best friends, them try and date, them not date, them date again, so that when the breakup things happens, it can be about the fact that she feels like he scheduled this filming to dump me after this whole season. And no matter where you fall on that, like that is so interesting. And we wouldn't have had that if they were like, oh, Carl and Lindsay are 33. Let's leave them after season 4. You know what I mean? Like, I think, and especially like, I'm sorry if we talk about New Roni or all these things, like, this is where like I go on my, and again, I'm so team, like, I don't have to agree with you to think you're a great reality star. I'm like, there aren't a lot of Lindsay Hubbards. There just aren't. Like, she just is someone who is like a reactionary person who like, it doesn't matter if the cameras are on her or not, shit's going to happen. And no one's like that on Roni.
Yeah. There's been talk of her going on Roni. Like, people want her to join that cast, maybe.
Yeah. Or if they did even like how they are doing The Valley now, like, I feel like the talent, I think that's the thing too with Bravo, is what I've been able to glean and realize is that like good talent and cherished talent is like really hard to come by. And like audiences want to follow these stories. Like if they did a show like The City or something where like we did transition like Kyle and Amanda and Carl and Lindsay and like people like, and we were just following them in New York. Like there's an audience for that.
You were at the Summer House premiere party. Did you get to chat with any of the cast?
Yeah, I chatted with everybody. Okay. And they're great. Like the thing about whenever anyone asks me about any Bravo talent, I would say 99% of the time, almost all the time, they're always as advertised. Like what you see really is what you get. So like it was a blast. Like it's all fun, and it was so fun to be around them at this time of Summer House. Like it's a show that I have no involvement at all in the creation of. I just luckily get to report it, but it's a show that like I feel like I kind of have pride for because it was kind of a little engine that could. Like I don't think anyone predicted the show when it came out that it would be what it is now. Again, especially in the wake of like there's a huge hole in the programming with Vanderpump Rules not there in terms of that younger demographic than the Housewives. And it's just great. And I think the show is great. I think they work really hard to give us good TV. And I think they kind of deserve all their flowers. So it was like fun. It was a very fabulous, it was at the Fleur Room, which is at one of the Moxies downtown, which was actually where the Roni premiere episode was for the second season of the reboot, where Brynn storms out crying. It was in that exact venue. So that was kind of cool, like a little Bravo meta moment. I got to talk with Gabby a bit, Paige, of course, Lindsay, pretty much most of them. Actually, I didn't really talk to Jesse. I talked to Wes a bit, but they're all great. They're all awesome and cool. And it was like Andy showed up. It was like a fun celebration of that show.
Did you get to see any or observe any dynamics between Jesse and Lexi?
They were around each other, I felt like, but it was also really packed. So like I was trying to observe dynamics, but I also was like all over the place.
So it wasn't giving like we're in love. with each other.
That wasn't what I was gathering, but it's also hard to tell. Like, I don't know. I think sometimes when they show up to these things, they don't want to give anything off either. Like, I also think that there's like an obligation that like they don't want to give things away. So I never can like hang my hat on those things outside of like when there's huge cast rifts and like people don't talk to each other at all or like on opposite sides of the room. Like, nothing was like that. They all took a cast picture together. But yeah, I wish I had been able to glean more, but I had a hard time tracking people. But Lexi was so nice. I did get to talk with her for a bit. She was very fun.
So sweet. She seems so sweet. Bringing like that youthful energy into the show.
Yes, for sure.
You have a favorite person on Summer House currently?
It's definitely Paige. I think Paige is just a all-star Bravolebrity that has like really just like worked her way to like where she is now. And I think she's also good at like slight little tweaks and course corrects. Like there used to be such a refrain. Like now they like own it, like the bed sore girl moniker. But like at the time, people were like the audience started to get a little frustrated with like Sierra, Paige, and Amanda always being and Maya being in the bed all the time. And then they kind of like own like she's just so savvy and so good at like tweaking things. I think she's just such a star. And then also Lindsay. And I know she's like so polarizing for people, but I'm kind of like, she is just good reality TV. Like she's fantastic. Even like when her and Carl finally talked to each other and then she was like, she clocked that Kyle was like pretending to like set up equipment, but he was really just listening. Like, I just think like, again, shared history is so hard to come by. And I think that she is just she's just like a endlessly fascinating reality TV person to me. Like, and almost every quote from the show, like, how many sandwiches have you made for me? Don't activate me. You don't want to see me activated. Like, she just like kind of is embedded in the culture of the show. And I just love that both of them are like finally on good terms now. It's like really fun to see them kind of bond and like their little like Instagram messages back and forth and their comments. And like, I think that show, season 6 and 7, when it was like too dark with the girls and it was like everybody up against Lindsay, it just felt a little, and the Danielle season was a lot. I think we know the outcome of that. But I think Lindsay deserves a season where like she can hang out with the girls and have a good time. Are you watching Southern Hospitality?
No, I've never watched it. I've never watched either of the Southern shows, but I know you're a big Southern Hospitality fan yourself.
I think you should. I think you need to tap in. Okay. It's very good.
I saw you just interviewed like one of the gay stars,
Michaels.
On that show.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. There are 2 out gay cast members, TJ and Michaels, both great. And it was so fun. Again, like to interview someone with like a shared experience. Michaels was such a fun interview, and they're very. It's so exciting. Like the ratings are up. There was just like a Deadline story about how that and Summer House had like their biggest ratings ever. And I think Southern Hospitality, similarly, if we can like pour into it, like a little plant, it'll be one of the best shows on Bravo. Like the cast is so stacked. It's like Vanderpump Rules early, but way more diverse. It's actually one of the most diverse shows on Bravo, which is so interesting to me because it's in Charleston, but it is. And less that it's in Charleston, more that it's a Southern Charm spinoff. That's one of the most diverse shows on Bravo. And it's at one of Leva's restaurants. And it's just, I think Leva's role is perfect because she's not as hands-on as LVP, but she's there for advice and guidance. It's such an easy binge. I think the first season's 8 episodes. The second is 9. This was 10. And it's, again, it is a group. Like they all worked together at Republic for years before the show even started filming. And when people come in, like they really, like Michaels really is the manager. Like that is their job. Like they work at Republic every weekend. And I think that it's scratching an itch for an even younger crowd that like, there are some stars. Grace Lilly, I don't know if you've heard of her. She's a star. Maddie's a star. Like I think you'll appreciate it. And it also helps again to like, I'm trying to think of it's like some of the strongest gay storytelling we've had on Bravo. Okay. Which is nice.
Okay, let me clock in. Now that the Traitors is over, I need a new show to watch. So, one thing, do I need to know anything about Southern Charm before I watch?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
And that's what I think is great. You'll meet, like, Leva's a cast member, but, like, they do so much introduction. There's no, like, Southern Charm people will pop up at the restaurant, but that's it. There's no shared... And every season, they kind of give a little refresh. But there's you don't need to know anything about Southern Charm. No.
Amazing.
You knowing
Amazing.
who like Austin and Craig are is all you need to know. And even that you don't.
Okay. The Traitors finale, the winners, the Danielle of it all, the Brittany of it all.
Mm-hmm.
How were you feeling when you pressed play on that finale episode?
I think it was a great finale. And I think I'm a little underwhelmed by the outcome, but I think that like it was a great finale and how it was constructed. Like I was like gagging and shocked from left to right. I think the pot is way too small because if you do the math, they took home nothing. But I think that like, and this show is so popular, like they gotta start making more money. And I think it was a great season for the faithfuls to take it. Like it just felt like we had so many stars there. I personally feel like Britney's last round table was fucking iconic. And I actually think that like if the cards weren't so stacked against her, like there's no way she was going to leave it, but like I've never seen a more compelling case. Like and I'm not a Big Brother watcher, so many people kept telling me like she's a legend, she's one of the best to ever do it. Like we love Britney, she's one of my favorite Big Brother players, and I feel like I'm so happy she got that because we finally got to see how good of a social player she is, and she had Dylan speechless. Like she really did a great job.
To get into the Danielle of it all, I feel like there's been a lot of chatter online about her and her performance as a traitor this year, and it's easy to like see that. You know, I see where people are coming from when like, you look how how there was so much dysfunction between the three of them, as in Carolyn, Boston Robin, and Danielle. I mean, it wasn't working. They weren't being strategic, and I was starting to like see what people were saying until she recruited Brittany. And the first like 15 minutes of that episode with Brittany as a traitor, them being so strategic and working together and like plotting, I was like, we are so back. And I really wish we could have had more of that for like a few more episodes. Like rather than just like 15 minutes, like give us something where like the traitors are clocked in like they were last season.
I agree. My experience watching this, again, because I'm not a Big Brother watcher or a Survivor watcher, so I always enter traitors Bravo forward. Yeah. But I think it was so interesting in how, and they talked about this, I think, perfectly at the reunion, but like I found Danielle's gameplay annoying and I would never play that way. But to say she's a bad traitor when she made it to the end, I think is just bad faith. Like, I think it's like, it didn't work for me. It was annoying, but like she made it. Like she literally, the traitors would not work with her at every turn. And like, you could be on whatever side you want, but like she was asking to work with them and they never wanted to work with her. She successfully got all of them out. And any faithful who even questioned her crying and stuff, she murdered. And then I'm like, so like everyone's like, she's ruining the game. I'm like, no, that kind of is the game. And I think that like people, it was a crazy strategy, the crying and the flailing and the swearing on her grandkids, but it worked. It literally worked. And I think that like she made such and I'm glad that like the reunion, it felt like kind of full circle and the temperature kind of came down a bit because it's just like, she like, that is being a good traitor. Like just cause like we don't believe it as the audience, but like all the faithfuls did. And the ones who didn't were either gone or were like questioning enough. They didn't feel like they had the votes for her. And even I started to see it really in the Carolyn episode as much as like, and Carolyn even said it, like, she wasn't prepared. Like Danielle was just 2 steps ahead of her, setting her up in the chess game. She just did. And I don't watch gameplay games like that, but it's always fun for me to see like, oh, like they're kind of 5 steps ahead. But yeah, I think overall it was great. I think next season I would like there to be a little less. I feel like there was a more is more approach to this season, which I did kind of like. It was like season 2 was such a runaway success that they were like bigger and better. I think we need to do a little less stunts of like the 3 gamer boys in the cage and like throwing people in and
if
out.
you're
like,
gonna
I'm like,
do
I think
that,
we need to
give us Bravo stars in the cages.
Yes.
Like having versatility. I felt like all the surprises came from like game players to the point where like there was a portion earlier in the season where like they eliminated all the housewives and it was just always people from the challenge. And I'm like, that's great, but I don't watch that show. And there's no way that like Peacock doesn't know what shows people that are watching the Traitors also watch on Peacock. And so,
Yes,
like,
totally.
they know what the audience is. Like, there's just no way they don't have that data. So, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope that next season's more balanced and that, like, the people that they pick from each of these different shows, like, they know will equally bring value and, like, be able to really push things forward. It was unfortunate to see that just because Phaedra was so good last season that the game players decided, or the Traitors decided, that anyone who was a housewife was there for
Housewife
arrest.
can't be trusted. Totally.
Yeah.
I know. And that's what I think we're going to see swing. Like, now I wonder if next season, like, all eyes are on Big Brother people.
Is there any Bravolebrities you'd like to see on season 4?
Yes. I'm like, absolutely. Even though I think there'd be such a huge target on her back. And I don't know if she'd even say yes. I think Lisa Rinna would have to do Traitors ones. I think she is, like, one of the best to ever do it. Change the game. I would say I would really like, they had Robin. I would like to see Giselle Bryant on the Traitors. She is they're best friends, but Giselle is just a different beast. She's really quick-witted. She's very funny and very charismatic. And I think that people would have a hard time with her if she was a traitor. Like, I think it would be actually tough to snuff her out. Yeah, and maybe someone from Salt Lake, but I feel like it's almost too soon.
Because no one from Salt Lake's been on Traitors.
No, the only housewives have been Brandi Glanville, Tamra, Sheree, Phaedra, Dorinda, Dolores, Chanel Ayan.
Okay.
Right? Oh, Lindsay Hubbard. Hello. I'm thinking of someone else. I'm like, it should be Lindsay. And there were those rumors that, like, it was supposed to, or Lindsay was supposed to do Traitors this year, but then she got pregnant.
Okay.
I think Lindsay, especially because they've had 2 Summer House people already, she's the next person I think who should be on the Traitors, for sure.
Do you think they'd ask her over Paige? Or Paige wouldn't do it? Okay.
I think Paige would do it, but I think they would ask her over Paige right now. I don't know why. It's just like what I feel. Like, I'm just like, I think Paige will, or it would be cool. Maybe if they both did it at the same time. Like, that'd be kind of wild. But I think Lindsay is, like, makes so much sense, especially because it works well, I think, with them filming, because as we saw, it's like they do their reunion in late spring and then they don't start filming in July, and they always film Traitors in June. So it's like like Sierra just got back from Traitors and started filming. So I think it's like, it works with that cast well. That's something you have to consider too, is that for some shows, the way the filming cadence is, if you're filming in the summer. Well,
to wrap up this episode, Jared, I love to ask this question to people whenever we have usually, like, their first episode on the podcast and we, like, go through their story. But if you were to give advice to a younger version of yourself, maybe it's that little Jared, like, in 2nd grade saying that he has, like, the power to gab, or whatever it may be, what advice would you give to him?
To just keep going, like, and to lean into what you love. Like, I think it's a cultural thing. At the time where I was growing up, it was like the, like, guilty pleasure thing. Like, now it's like, you really can be like, I'm a Bravoholic, and it's like, that's like what you love. There kind of is no such thing as guilty pleasure anymore. Whereas, you know, growing up, it was like, even just talking about reality TV, it'd be like, oh God, like, you had to, like, secretly like things. And I think I would just tell myself to just, like, it's okay to, like, just, like, geek out about things, to, like, love everything. Like, that's okay, and it's actually cool. And, like, and you will meet other people who have similar interests, and you will, like, be able to connect with people just based off of what you love. And, like, and there are other people who love things just as much as you, and that you're going to be able to, like, engage with people and even, like, have a career talking about stuff like that. Which I think is cool.
Normalize loving things, normalize having fun, and usually if you're having that passion and you're enjoying it, like, it's going to take you far.
Yes.
Well, Jared, thank you so much for being here and doing this today. Your 4th time on the pod.
Yes. I love it. I'm a senior.
Yeah. I appreciate it. And thank you always for coming back here and chatting with me. If people don't already, do you want to give everyone your socials so they can follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on Instagram at the Jared Alex, and on TikTok at the Jared Alexander. And I write all my Bravo coverage now at Parade Magazine. So all my interviews will either be on my Instagram or also on the site there, and recaps. And I'm having a lot of fun covering it over there. And it's a cool year for Bravo. So be on the lookout. I feel like there's going to be really, really fun stuff.
You're teasing. I mean, I've seen some rumors on Dumois, but maybe you know more than...
No, even just from what's out there, it's like we know like certain shows are coming back, and I feel like it's exciting.
Yes, I can't wait. I really want to watch that dating show with the housewives.
Oh, Love Hotel. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm really excited
fun.
about that too.
Well, Jared, thank you so much. Again, I appreciate it. You guys can follow the pod on Instagram at UnpackTHT and on TikTok at UnpackThatPod. Have a great rest of your week. I'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.